Good to be with you. I'm Katy. The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and there is reason to believe that the body may not stop there. Contraception, same-sex marriage, and same-sex relationships could potentially be next. In his concurring opinion, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote that the purported right to abortion is not a form of liberty protected by the Due Process Clause. He goes on to say we should reconsider all of this court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell. He is referring to landmark decisions that enshrined rights many Americans have come to take for granted. The right to have control over when and if you get pregnant to start with. The right to be with the person you love, regardless of their sex. The right to marry whomever you want. This ruling on abortion makes it clear none of that is safe, at least not for the long-term future as it stands. Following the court's decision on Roe, trigger laws have already gone into effect. If you live in Louisiana, you cannot terminate your pregnancy as of right now. All 3 abortion clinics there have shut down. Drug-induced abortions, which now account for about half of all abortions, are now illegal. If you are a victim of rape or incest, it does not matter. It is the same in Kentucky, the same in South Dakota, and it will be the same in just a few weeks for other states on your screen right now. Arkansas, Idaho, Missouri, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Utah, and Wyoming. Reaction has been pouring in from lawmakers, from reproductive rights campaigners. But I want to take you to a few women and listen to what they say. American women who say their country has turned its back on them.
This is insane. And going over to the other side especially was, I wanted to yell at the people there. Just how? It feels like a betrayal. It feels like my country doesn't love me and appreciate my body as a woman. I can't even chant because I can't say anything. It hurts.
I'm worried for the young women who are on opposition, who don't understand how at risk their lives may be.
Polling showed the majority of Americans did not want the country to overturn, the court to overturn Roe v. Wade. A majority of Americans. But majorities of Americans in key places did vote to put people in power who were ultimately responsible for the makeup of the Supreme Court. In other words, enough Republicans in enough key places helped ensure a Republican majority could confirm conservative justices. Now, if you are wondering how it could be that the court is so out of step with the opinion of a majority of all Americans, consider this. 80 million eligible voters do not vote. President Biden repeated as much earlier this afternoon, saying the right to health care can be restored with a bigger Democratic majority in Congress.
With your vote, you can act. You can have the final word. This is not over.
Joining me now, NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams, NBC News correspondent Julia Ainsley from the Supreme Court as well, outside of it, Slate senior editor and MSNBC law and politics analyst Dahlia Lithwick, and former U.S. attorney and MSNBC legal analyst Barbara McQuaid. Pete, you know this better than anybody. We were, of course, expecting this, but walk us through what we learned today.
Well, this decision tracks very closely to the draft opinion written in February that was leaked in May. It makes the same arguments that there is no constitutional right to abortion, that in order to find a constitutional right through the 14th Amendment, it must be something that is deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition and essential to the concept of ordered liberty. And for that reason, the Supreme Court said the Roe v. Wade ruling flunks the test. It says it was egregiously wrong when it was originally ruled on in 1973, and that therefore the principle of sticking with decisions known as stare decisis doesn't apply because it was wrong and has been damaging to the country. Now, on this question of whether the decision undercuts other decisions that have found a right to privacy, like Griswold for contraceptives, Lawrence for intimate relations, Obergefell for same-sex marriage, Justice Alito goes out of his way twice to say, make no mistake, we're ruling only on abortion, and it's different because it involves a potential life. And Justice Kavanaugh, in his concurrence, says much the same. He says we're only deciding about abortion. We're not casting doubt on any of those other decisions. You're right that Justice Thomas says, nonetheless, he thinks the court should now look back at some of those other decisions that depended on a concept of substantive due process. But the dissenters say the court can't have it both ways. It either has to stick with its logic about history and tradition, or it has to say that it only counts for abortion. You can't have it both ways. So I think that's a debate that's going to continue for some time. Some of those trigger law states depended on very quick action by the state attorney general to declare that the court had overturned Roe. So in 5 or 6 of those trigger law states, as of right now, abortion is illegal. The rest of them will follow suit. And ultimately, within, say, several weeks, up to 30 days, I think the rest of the 24 states that are likely to ban abortion will join them as well. So this decision doesn't ban abortion nationwide. It just removes it as a constitutional right, leaving it up to the states. And this is a first, Katy, because the Supreme Court in history has never before granted a widely recognized constitutional right and then taken it back. So this is historic in many ways.
Pete, I know we're talking about a majority here, but Justice John Roberts, his majority concurrence was nuanced. So it didn't necessarily say that Roe v. Wade should be overturned. And I wonder, does this mean that if not for one conservative justice, if it was one more liberal justice or moderate justice, that maybe this would have gone in a different direction?
Oh, without question. So he did not join his colleagues in overturning Roe. So to be clear, the central issue in this case was really the one the court granted was, can a state ban abortion before viability? That was the issue raised by the law in Mississippi that would ban abortions after 15 weeks. And the central holding, really, of Roe and the follow-on case of Casey put together was that states cannot ban abortion before viability. They can restrict it, but they can't ban it. They can ban it after viability. Roberts said that made no sense. He said the Mississippi law should be upheld, but he said the court should not have gone the rest of the way to overturn Roe. That wasn't necessary, he said, and was going too fast. So it's 5-4 on overturning Roe.
Pete Williams. Pete, I know you're very busy, so thank you very much for joining us this hour. Julia, you are on the steps, or almost on the steps of the Supreme Court, since there's fencing around the Supreme Court. What are you hearing out there from people reacting?
Well, that's right, Katie. We can't get on the steps of the Supreme Court because there's a barricade that's actually been there since that opinion leaked in May. And as I've been here, Katie, I would say the crowd is getting denser and things are getting more tense by the hour here. We have a number of people on both sides, sometimes engaging in shouting matches with each other. We've also spoken to people who were devastated by this opinion and also some who are celebrating today. Let's take a listen to some from the pro-life side who are overjoyed at this news.
It's a roller coaster of emotion. It's complete and utter joy that it was finally overturned, but the determination, a steely determination that the battle is not over.
Personally, I've had people in my family have abortions, and they have felt the regret years and years down the line, and they're still dealing and facing with the trauma today. And if Roe v. Wade wouldn't have been legal inside of the United States, I would have family members that I don't have today.
So as you can see, now we're having some more speakers come into the area. And Katie, just behind me, we have an increased presence from Capitol Police. They have now lined the barricade. You can't see behind this crowd, but there are police in front of the barricade, in front of the Supreme Court. People are now getting quiet as we see more speakers come take the stage. Unfortunately, from here, I can't see who that is, but we are expecting some lawmakers to come out and speak to this crowd today as Congress tries to drum up support for how Democrats could now work to try to codify Roe since it has now been struck down today by this court.